This is Judge Joe Brown, and you're watching We All Be News TV, the
News-free Dixie.
News-free Dixie for the 21st century.
All right. Well, We All Be is honored to have on the one and only brother Aron Ramses, the author of the Aware Negro, a very wonderful Afrocentric, Afro-futuristic science fiction novel. There's a must-read for 2017 and beyond. How are you doing tonight, brother?
Hey, I'm all right, man. I'm glad we hooked up, met up, and we can do this after many months of saying we are going to do it. I'm sure I'm the one who's at blame for procrastinating, but I greatly appreciate you giving me your time.
No, it was an honor, man. How did we meet up exactly? Can you tell the people how we met?
Yeah, it's kind of a funny story. It was one of the best nights of my life and a semi-traumatic night. So in St. Louis, I think it was back in August. I know it was like maybe a couple of weeks before the show. I was walking through the mall, and I walked past this comedy club, and it said Dick Gregory. Like it was in a couple of weeks. I can't remember the exact date, but I was like, oh, man.
Oh, Mother's Day. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Mother's Day, right. And I was like, man, I got to see Baba Dick. And my wife was like, man, we got Chance the Rapper tickets for that same night. And I'm like, you know what? And I would definitely don't think I was being prophetic, but I just kind of know how things go sometimes. And I said, you know, the last time he was in St. Louis, for that whatever reason, I didn't go. And I was like, this time I'm not going to pass up that opportunity. And I'm like, man, I'm going to see him. I said, so, you know, you can ask somebody else if they want to go see Chance. I was like, he might be around. I said, but if anything happened to Dick and I didn't get a chance to see him, I was like, I was just telling you my heart was going to be broken. So she was like, yeah, I understand. So it's funny. So that day of the concert, I got there early, like an hour early, because I thought that would make a difference on like the seat I got or something like that. Because I was like, man, I want to be in the front. So, you know, he might call on me or something, have me read something, tell me how stupid I am or something like that. And I was like, but that didn't happen. But it was crazy. So when I walked in to get my ticket, he was right there. And like I said, this is like a couple of hours before the show was going to start. And I was going to meet a friend, eat, have some drink. And I'm like, oh, man, like, you know, there's Baba Dick right there. I'm like, man, this is crazy. So it's like the minute I walked in the door, he looked back at me. And I'm like, man, that's cool. He was like, hey, how you doing? Very nice, very warm. And I was like, cool, because I really wanted to give him a copy of my book, The WEREnigro, Negro, because he inspired me so much, you know. And I had wrote a little something up in there and everything. So I'm like, okay, you know, I'm going to see if I can get a chance real quick to give him my book. So he started walking in, and he was only with one other person, but the guy he was with I think it might have been his brother or nephew or somebody.
Yeah, nephew.
Or son, I don't know. Okay, yeah, kind of left him a little bit, right? He was kind of walking by himself, and I was like, hey, Baba Dick, can I talk to you real quick? And he's like, nah, I got to go. They need me. So I was like, so I'm thinking to myself, you know, man, it's early. You know, you got like a couple of hours. And he was like, I said, real quick, you know, I just want to, he was like, hey, man. And he spun around on me real quick. And I'm like, what, you know? And then he had that look in his eyes like, you know, for somebody at his age, man, he just had a fire in him. In his eyes, man. And I mean, he froze me in my tracks. And he's like, if I was Bill Cosby, you think you could just walk up on me right now? I probably have 1,000 people around me. You wouldn't be able to get this close to me. I'm out here all by myself. I said no. So I meant no. I got to go. They waiting for me. And I was like, I was just frozen. He was like, you know, it's like, huh? You know, he did like that, huh? I mean, I was like, you understand? And I was like, yes, sir. I was like, hey, I didn't mean anything. You know, sorry, Baba, you know. So he walked off. And I was like, damn. I just got chewed out by Dick Gregory. I was like, man, I don't know if I should feel honored or embarrassed or how I should feel right now, right? So my buddy showed up and I told him what happened. He was like, man. So I'm like, man, I'm giving him a wide berth. So that night before the show started, so I didn't realize at that time that he did have a show. He was late for his show. Like, he was supposed to be in there up on stage and stuff. So I didn't realize that.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went up in there, so before that show, the doors opened, the people from the show earlier were coming out, and my buddy was right there with me. And all of a sudden, Dick just snuck up behind him. I didn't even see him. And he was, like, right there standing next to us. And he was like, hey, how you doing? How's everybody doing? And he came out. And this is before our show, but the end of the other show.
Mm-hmm.
And was talking to everybody, taking pictures with everybody, and everything. So then we all went in or whatever. And, everybody filled up the place. And I think you had made a comment about this once before in another video. That show was off the chain.
Yeah,
it was loud. He was fired up. I heard him on many a video, but I never heard him that passionate. He was going off. It was hilarious. I was dying laughing. It was a great show.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was walking out of the show, I don't know if I noticed you or what, but you had said something, or I noticed you. I was like, hey, man, because, when you see somebody in a video, and I'm sure this happens to you all the time, you almost feel like you know them.
Mm-hmm.
They I'm like, oh, hey, how's it going, man? And so me and you started talking, and I told you about what happened earlier, and I was like, man, I don't know if I should talk to him again, or approach him or whatever, and you were like, oh, man, he just chewed me out, a couple of minutes ago,
right.
And everything. So then, we started talking, and I was talking to you about my book. So then afterwards, I was on one of the last few people to talk to him, and he was just standing around, and he was like, okay, anybody else want to come take a picture or talk to me? You better come on, because I'm about to get out of here. So I was like, I'm going to go talk to him. Mm-hmm. But I didn't give him my book. I think I asked you to hold it for me. So I apologized to him about what happened earlier. He was like, what? Like, what happened? And I was like, man, just the kindest person. He was like, that's in the past. Mm-hmm. He was like, even though it might have been an hour ago, that's in the past, we move on. Mm-hmm. So, we took a really good picture together. Like I said, great experience for me. And then after that, we talked for a little bit more. And so other than that, man, that's how we met and kind of kept in touch from there. So like I said, once again, I'm absolutely honored to be on your program right now talking to you.
Well, Brother Ramses, it's an honor to meet you as well. Who would have known that, in a couple of months later, he'll be dead, So it was a great decision you made. Yeah.
Right.
But he left such a wonderful legacy, and the legacy he left is with us, the people that were inspired by his genius and his life. We got the mission now. We got the torch, and I think that you are doing a wonderful job in terms of your book series, like especially with the WEREnigro. Very powerful book. I can see inspirations and glimpses of Gregory in the book because you're dealing with shape-shifting and police brutality and white supremacy. But before we get into the book, I like to talk about who is Aron Ramses. Where you come from? Who your people? How did your story begin?
No, okay. So anyway, I'm born and raised in Chicago. A product of the early '70s. So I grew up on the South Side. My father, at one point in his life, was an aspiring jazz musician. So he was a drummer and a trumpet player. But he had to give up the trumpet because of his health. Mm-hmm. But he started playing the drums. And his stage name, when he was playing the drums, was Ramses the Symbol, which I didn't realize it at the time. Even when he told me, I just kind of discovered this recently. But the symbol is where the Pharaoh Ramses is buried, right? Mm-hmm. So at that time, my father was really into, the studies like Egyptology. I think he was hanging out with some Hebrew Israelites at the time. And my mom, kind of got into it also with him. So, in a way, both of my parents were both kind of like into, expanding their horizons when it came to religion. So my father actually wanted to name me Aron Ramses. And my mom was like, no, this is your first son. You need to name him after you. So your name is, whatever, Junior. And I was like, so when my father told me about what my name would have been, me, I'm like, man, for real, man, that would have been cool. He was like, I know. And she was like, but my mom at the time was like, nah, You know, but so growing up, you know, on the south side of Chicago, you know, it's weird sometimes when I look back on it. It was such a powerful, like wonderful Black experience. You know, for me as a child, you know, grew up in a decent neighborhood, you know, had a lot of, you know, professional people around us. You know, my family is, you know, professional, educated, you know, on one hand, and then, you know, I got the other side of the family like we all do, that we love, that they really do keep things, you know, quite real. But so as a child, you know, both of my parents, like I said, were very open-minded when it came to religion, and they both, you know, were kind of into metaphysics. But at one point, and I want to say this guy was a Hebrew Israelite also. I cannot think of where in the world his little church was at. But on Saturdays, we would go to this. It was like a church next to a pawn shop. Like, so the guy owned like a junk store, which was fascinating within itself. But we would learn astrology, metaphysics, how to, you know, draw up astrological charts and all this kind of stuff. So, you know, being a kid, being exposed to that was just interesting and just real deep. Just really kind of always opened up my mind, like really geared me around, you know, mythology and stuff like that. So, you know, also at a young age, my parents split up. So kind of for me to be able to cope, you know, with that reality, I had really started getting into like the study of mythology, you know, like the Greek mythology, Roman, Norse mythology. And my mom always had books laying around about Hinduism with the god Shiva on them, and Krishna, and, you know, a lot of books about Egyptology. Now she was in the tarot cards, all this stuff, you know, so we were exposed to all this. But then when my mom fell on hard times, mentally, the family, who was primarily Christian, blamed it on her study of these other, what they call occult religions. So, you know, when you hear that kind of stuff, you're like, oh man, I ain't touching that. I'm not going nowhere near that. You know, that's, you know, they were like, that's the devil and blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, well, I ain't fooling with that stuff no more, you know. So, but I always still kind of was like in the back of my mind, you know, still into astrology. But at that time also in my life, going from the study of mythology, I really started getting into comic books. And that's when I became like just a hardcore, you know, comic book collector, and, you know, reading and collecting comic books for over 30 years. You know, I have an immense collection, you know, so I kind of consider myself also an expert, you know, on comic books and stuff like that. I believe I could beat anybody in trivia night when it comes to that. But I always, you know, deep down in my mind, you know, always kind of set a goal for myself that I eventually wanted to start writing, because I always you knew that I had a hell of an imagination. Like I could tell stories to my friends and just make up crazy stuff, and they'd be like, man, that is bananas. Like, you know, you need to start writing this stuff down. But my big thing is that I never really wrote anything down. I just kind of imagined it. So I would say like when I was in my late 20s is when I actually wrote my first book. And it was about this book called The Little Stranger, about this boy growing up in ancient Egypt and Africa. Because my main thing was is that like for a while that, you know, I was really like into the Lord of the Rings and, you know, that whole J.R.R. Tolkien lore. But he kind of inspired me in one way. I mean, even though the fact that he's a flat out racist, but he inspired me in the sense that, you know, people were always confused, like the King Arthur mythology with British mythology. But they don't understand that the whole King Arthur thing was based off a French, it was a French story, not a British story. So now we used to grind his teeth, and he was like, man, I want to create my own mythology. And that's when he, you know, supposedly created this language, you know, created this whole thing with the L.L and the Lord of the Rings and all that kind of stuff. You know, of course, when you really start getting into, you know, occult studies and learning more about ancient Kemet and, you know, studies of Egypt, you really do start figuring out that a lot of that stuff was just plagiarized off of our story. But that's a story for another time. But that just inspired me, because I even thought to myself, it's like, man, I'm African, you know, you don't really see too many stories about our own mythology, you know. And I was like, I want to change that. So the first book I wrote kind of hit upon that. I haven't released that book yet. That's something that I'm working on, that I plan on editing and then, re-releasing it, now. Because when I first wrote the book, of course, I tried to get an agent. I tried to shop the book around and stuff like that. But the response from to get a book deal, I couldn't even get an agent. I couldn't even find anybody that would even represent me and my story because they were like, science fiction is very tight. What they meant to say is that science fiction is very white. So you got to stick in these certain genres. So you got to either do like the Star Wars thing, you got to do like this Elf thing, the Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter or whatever. But to try to come out with something unique, they're like, nah, nobody's going to buy that. So I'm like, wow, okay. So I said, well, you know what? I'm not even going to try to shop this because I don't even really want a book deal because my sister was a writer and she has quite a few books out. But I kind of saw what she was going through with the publishing companies and everything. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to shelf this for right now because something is telling me that it's not time. And I think we talked about this once before. Like, I kind of consider myself a person who moves with the spirit. So I feel like if the spirit is saying to me, it ain't time, I won't do it. If the spirit is saying to me, this is what you need to do now, then I'll move on it, right? So I just kind of put that on the shelf and was like, I'm not even going to deal with that. And then the publishing industry kind of broke with the internet because people were able to actually start self-publishing and putting their own books, out without going through anybody. And then, my sister even started doing that. She was like, now is the time for you to, stop talking about this, and just get out here and, put your book out and stuff. And I was like, yeah, I want to do something. But I was like, man, I really don't want to do that book right now. I was like, I really don't know what I want to do. So once, like, with my day job, so I was working like in New York and New Jersey, and in my job, I just ride around the car all day, and I go to people's houses and stuff like that. But I was listening to comedy, and I was listening to like raw dog comedy. And then I was listening to Paul Mooney, who I think is hilarious. And right at the end of one of his skits, he had said something about white people, and it was like, but he was like, I can say that because I'm white. And then the crowd started laughing, and he was like, no, for real, I am. He's like, I'm a weird nigga. He was like, I'm a white man that got bit by a wild nigga, and that when it gets dark outside, this is what I turn into. So everybody thought that was funny. And I was in the car just dying laughing, but I swear it's crazy. The minute he said that, this whole story just started kind of filling my mind, right? And then that's when I even started thinking of like the whole Rudy Roo thing. I mean, but see, for me at that time, it was just a comedy because I would say that at that time of my life, from a conscious standpoint, I was always kind of like into the whole conspiracy. I always kind of knew what time it was because I think depending on sometimes where you grow up at, especially me growing up in Chicago, Chicago's just a constant city, I mean, you grow up feeling like, you do have some self-worth, as a black man. At least that's how it used to be when I was, there in the 70s, 80s, like before like the drugs and stuff like that got really bad. But so when that story kind of hit me and I started developing it in my mind, I did that for a couple of years, but I would see like little things like on the news about, people getting attacked. And I saw this video footage once with this group of like teenage boys attacking somebody, and they just looked like a wolf pack to me. So, like I said, this whole thing just started developing in my mind. I'm like, man, what about, do I want to go with this werewolf angle? But you're not turning into a werewolf. It's just like a white guy turning into a black dude that's out of control. How do I want to do this? So eventually something hit me like, well, I think I had like some carpal tunnel issues with my hands. So I had surgery one summer. And then I was starting a new job. I had quit my old job, was going to another company. And it was like that interview process with that other company drug out so long. And I got really discouraged. And even when I got the job, I was like, man, you know what? It's like something is just telling me right now, like it's time for me to make a change in my life. Like, I know even I'm going to get this job, I'll be making some good money. I just know I won't be happy. So something was saying to me, start writing your book now. Like just start writing. Before you really get into this job, start writing the book. So I started writing the book, and I got almost like halfway done. So that's why, like, you know, when you read in the book, it has a certain tone, like in the first few chapters. But then when you go into it later, it starts getting a little bit more conscious. But when I first started writing the book and I started this new job, I knew once I started that job, I was going to be done for a while. So I just shelved it. And I was like, you know what? When I get a chance to, when I'm inspired, you know, the spirit is moving through me, you know, I'll sit down and I'll write. So over the next few months, I would knock a chapter out, like on a Saturday night, you know, whatever, when everything was just lined up right. But then around that same time, my health started getting kind of bad because I really wasn't eating right, wasn't taking care of myself, and I didn't really know what was wrong with me. Mm-hmm. And then it was weird. So one night I had just Googled this question, and the question was, where do white people come from, right? Mm-hmm. And all this stuff started popping up and everything, and I saw this video about melanin. And it was talking about I guess like it was like these Europeans were saying that white people were experiment, or they could be experimented on and manipulated by aliens because they didn't have like this melanin in them that, you know, that could you know, that could correct anything, any anomalies to the DNA structure and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, what? Like, this is what melanin? You know, when you think melanin, all I'm thinking is people's skin tone. Like, the darker you are, the more melanin you have and everything. Mm-hmm. And then I had got on YouTube and I typed in some more things, and then like a bunch of videos popped up from Dr. Africa, and I started watching these videos, and man, it just like a chord struck in me, where it's like, it's almost sometimes when you hear the truth and your spirit knows that what you hear is true, it just does something to you, right? And it was like immediately I started following some of his suggestions on how to take care of myself, you know, how to eat fruit right, how to eat vegetables right, laying off of meat, you know, taking certain supplements. And I kid you not, my health just turned around like crazy. Like, I lost like almost, 40 pounds. I started feeling great. And I was like, man, there must be something to this. But then when I started watching his videos, for some reason, I think that was around the time Prince died, right? Mm-hmm. So that really hit me. So when I was watching some of his videos, he would talk about Baba Dick, and like talk about chemtrails and all this other kind of stuff. And I'm like, I'm gonna have to check this out. So, depending on what I typed in, Dick Gregory videos will start popping up. Mm-hmm. So I started watching them. And then, of course, once you start watching them, you just get addicted. Even to the point where you get to the point where it's like you start even memorizing the routines yourself, And then I'm hearing him, getting interviewed by you and him jumping on you and stuff, man. I'm like, man, like this dude is straight up going in. But I just really got addicted to that. And then it's just like the whole, like this wave hit me, man. Like just this consciousness wave. And like I said once before, when you just start hearing the truth, man, it just did something to me where I just couldn't go back. And I just feel like it's just like as a person, I just kind of became, embroiled in it, fascinated, and just completely just embraced this mentality. And from there, it just inspired me. So then I started, and I started feeling like I got to do more with my gift. I got to do more with my life. I got to do more with my gift when it comes to my people and, trying to do what I can to help other people have that light in their head go off like it did for me. Mm-hmm. So that's why I was like, you know what? I think this book is just the perfect angle or opportunity for that, because it's almost like if you read the book, you realize real quick, you're not being preached to, but I wrote it in a way that if I touch on something, hopefully it's going to make you say, oh, man, I want to look into that a little bit more. Like, where did that idea come from? What is that? Like, and then when you start looking into this kind of stuff, you'll probably have an awakening on your own. So I would say for the most part, like the book came out in April, but the overall response of it has been, you know, fantastic. I sell the book electronically and also the paperback versions through Amazon, and like the reviews and everything just inspire me. You know, people, you know, shoot me emails and just like, man, you know, this book has really touched me, and I really developed some really incredible relationships with, you know, other writers and artists and stuff like that. So I have some really big plans for the book in the future.
Man, that's excellent, man. Because I know when I read the book, it really blew me away with some of the concepts in it. Some of the things you take out of, you know, everyday life, like, you know, white supremacy, deals with police brutality. It also tackled the myth of black on black crime. You had a conspiracy in there, which I thought was very interesting and compelling. But I'd like to talk to you about your book. Can you tell us like the synopsis of your book, WEREnigro?
Yeah, absolutely. So the synopsis of the book pretty much is, it's based off of a guy who, so the main character of the book is white, you know, Midwesterner, ultra liberal, you know, and of course, you know, you've probably run into people like this. I have some, you know, associates who kind of fall into that category. But the thing that I wanted to touch upon that, because people look at liberalism like it's this thing where liberals just are open-minded and understanding to everything. And I'm like, nah, most liberals that you run into normally have their cause. And really outside of their cause, they're still influenced by their environment or their surroundings. And, you know, sometimes when people get mad and they get upset, you know, some of this other little stuff in them comes out, or, you know, it's almost like one of those things. I think Chris Rock has said it best once, where he was like, here I am, I'm Chris Rock, I'm a comedian, I'm a millionaire, but I guarantee you that janitor over there that's white wouldn't want to trade places with me. Because he'd be like, hey, I might be a janitor, but I'm still white. Like, that's worth something, right? So I think even when people, they have that subconsciousness in them. So what I wanted to touch upon was, when it hits the fan and they get upset, does their like overall good spirit and morality take over? Or if they get mad at you and you black, are you a nigga? Right? So I wanted to touch on that. And so I was like, man, let me think of a creative way to do this. But the book also, to me, is like the introduction to consciousness. And to me, nothing is more vanilla than, you know, the liberal white Midwestern man, right? And people don't, even black people can't see this. But like, if you don't really come into consciousness and you just don't understand, you know, what we are, what we mean to this world from an Afrocentric standpoint, what is your brain geared around? Your brain is just pretty much programmed and geared around, you know, this American dream, you know, that's really not for you. It really doesn't have a place for you. So like I said, so I wanted to kind of build this character group, you know, that could touch on it. So the character, the main character, at one point in the book, and I don't want to give too much of it away, but the main character gets attacked by Aware Negro, this big, tremendous, you know, black man, like almost 7 feet tall, solid muscle, who bites him. And then during the next full moon, he becomes Aware Negro, where he's just completely out of control. You know, to one degree, he's sickened by what he's become, but on the other hand, he's fascinated by this power and everything. But then it also comes down to, okay, are you manifesting into this out of control Negro because that's what you are, or are you manifesting in that because that's what you deep down inside think of black people, right? So once he, you know, gets involved in it, and that's pointed out to him, it's just like you've been given this gift, you're special. This is a bigger picture kind of scenario where this almost has like galactic proportions on this conspiracy that has been going on against us since we emerged on this planet. right? So the book is, the WEREnigro is the first book in a 3-part trilogy called The Melanin Harvest. So the Melanin Harvest is this galactic conspiracy to harvest melanin from black people on this planet. So we going all the way back in history. Like on the first book pretty much just took us back to, you know, the slave trade and maybe a time before that and what that was all about, the real true story behind that. And when I say true story, of course, I mean, and, you know, from my science fiction, you know, standpoint, maybe, you know, but, and just kind of, you know, hitting it from there and just moving through history. And it's almost like some of those aha moments when you're like, man, is that possible? Is that true? I never thought about that. So I think for me, the book is mainly geared around getting people into the mindset of questioning everything. Questioning everything. Because when you come into consciousness, you know, the WEREnigro just hits the first phase of consciousness, like the first level, which is just recognizing that everything that you think you know, you don't know nothing. Everything that you think you see, you really not seeing that. Everything that you think you're watching, everything you think you're listening to here, none of it really is what you believe it is. And then once you can really start piecing out the symbology and all this stuff in your life that's always been around you, you can't look at anything the same again. I can't walk down the street and see a logo. I can't walk down the street and look at the way a doorway is shaped, a window is I mean, it's like I look at everything now. You know, when I watch movies, it's like I'm starting to be able to see the deeper picture, understanding to it all. So people will say, well, you know, that's what most schizophrenic people do. You know, right? That's what crazy people do. And it's like, no, because I'm not alone. And, you know, and not only am I not alone, I'm actually starting to look at the world not only through the eyes of my conscious brothers and sisters, but I'm learning how to look at the world like the powers that be look at the world. Because people think that these people who are controlling things are these Bible Belt, Midwestern, God-fearing people who go to church every Sunday. They got these Christian beliefs, and the United States was born on these Christian morality and principles and all this kind of stuff. And that's really not the case at all. So when you start understanding this and you start delving into occultism, the mystic arts, paganism, history, breaking down the Bible, really taking a less childlike approach at looking at things, you really start coming into consciousness. And the one thing I tell anybody is that every day I feel like I learn something, but I also feel like I don't know anything. So my mind is completely open and receptive to new information and ideas because I don't feel like I know anything. So when you're reading this book, damn near every chapter, you're getting a new twist or you're getting a new turn. And you're like, man, I thought I knew where this was going. I think I know what's going on. And then, bam, this happens. And you're like, man, I didn't see that coming at all because I want to keep people, you know, on their toes. You know, I honestly think it's one of those books where if you honestly just have a day, you can just sit down and read it. It's just straight through. And you know, and my point was when after you get done reading it, that you're almost like, man, what? Let me go back and read let me go back and hit, like, what do you say on this page? You know, where is this going? And I just kind of left it, of course, it's on a cliffhanger, pending on, you know, the second book coming out. But, you know, right now, for me, I'm just doing a lot of studying, you know, a lot of research, a lot of reading because, you know, this book was a lot of fun, and I definitely want to keep the same tone and everything going, you know, keep it funny, keep it loose, keep the pace moving fast. But I really want to be able to drop some wonderful gems in there that I'm hoping by the end of the third book, that I'm hoping that this is where I'm at in my life by the end of this third book, that I'm at a level of consciousness where I can really be able to give somebody a breakdown from the beginning all the way up to like the top of the third level, where they can really say to themselves, I get it, I understand, you know, and hopefully, you know, I'll touch somebody, man, and, you know, and they'll, you know, actually wake up, man, and come alive, because we got a lot of dead people out here right now, man.
Mm-hmm. I mean, definitely, I would say your book is wonderful. I remember a person once told me, just because you didn't read that book does not mean it didn't change your world. You know, like he was referring to Uncle Tom's Cabin, Harry Beecher Stowe book, you know, and that actually helped lead to the Civil War, to the American Civil War. And I think that the timeliness of your book, you know, like when I read your book, I got through with it. I said, this could be our generation's The Spook Who Sat by the Door, or this could be a movie like Get Out, a game changer like Get Out movie, which came out this year. But I'm looking at the location. You're writing from the epicenter of Black consciousness now, Black radicalism and activism, which is, as you say, St. Louis, Missouri. Could you explain the influence of your location on your book and what you're doing right now with your literary art?
Yeah, you know, like, okay, so I'm born and raised in Chicago. You know, at one point in my life, we had moved to Missouri, you know, with my mom, like doing junior high school. Mm-hmm. And we lived in Missouri for a couple of years. Like, some of my family stayed. So in the summer times and Christmas breaks and stuff like that, I would come back to Missouri. I mean, you know, it's weird because I really couldn't even explain to you really what the appeal, you know, was about it. But it was just something about it, man. It's just something that was just real, genuine. I don't know if it's like necessarily a Southern thing, but when you really get out of the real big cities, right, the mentality of the people just completely changed. Where to me, people here are very genuine in who they are, but on the same token, this is the show me state. And see, and I never really understood, you know, what that even meant until I moved back here to go to college, right? So that show me mentality is kind of like put up or shut up. Yeah. You know, everything is cool and laid back, but you know, depending on how you cross somebody here, people here are real quick to pop you in your mouth. I mean, there's definitely a creed, you know, and an accountability thing. And it's not about, back in the day, you know, it really wasn't about people. It really wasn't about, like, you know, you got some beef with somebody, they're going to put some guns out, you know, no, you're going to duke it out. It's kind of real old school to me, right? But I think Baba Dick, to me, kind of almost embodied St. Louis and that fire and that passion, where it's like, you know, I can be, you know, I can either be an angel or I could be a devil. I could be a monster. You bring that monster out in me, you know, you're going to be in for it. You're going to see this fire behind my eyes. So for me, that was always just very, you know, inspiring. The pace is a little bit slower. You know, you got this river here, the Mississippi River, which is basically named after ISIS. A lot of people don't even know that. But you got these small little towns, like you got Cairo, Illinois. You know, Southern Illinois is real close here. I mean, their mascot is the Saluki, which is basically, you know, Anubis. You got Hannibal, Missouri, where Mark Twain is from. You know, I got family up there, so that kind of really inspires me. But so when things here in St. Louis kind of popped off the way that they did in Ferguson, I wasn't surprised at all. Because to me, it's almost like the people here are a sleeping giant, where it's like things are pretty cool and laid back, but you poke us enough, you're going to wake us up. And when you wake us up, you're going to bring that, you know, you're going to raise that energy in us. You know, you're going to have a hell of a hard time dealing with it, because once we get to the point, and part of my French, once people get to the point where they don't give a fuck no more, they don't give a fuck, you know. So it's just going to come down to, we're going to have it out, we're going to express ourselves. And I think when that movement, you know, here started, I mean, I personally, you know, broke my heart. I couldn't have been, you know, any prouder. And even to this point and to this day, they're like, nah, man, you know, we're not gonna not be heard. You know, we're not gonna be ignored. You know, and so it's like, so now, you know, like, and you know, I don't know anybody, any movements or anything like that. I mean, I see stuff popping up on the news just like anybody else, so I'm caught by surprise, you know, just like anybody else is. But then you just see that they're not letting stuff die down. So, I mean, perfect example, during Black Friday, they shut the busiest, biggest mall here down. You know, because they just not letting stuff slide. You know, it's like they're going to keep the attention going and everything. So, you know, to a certain degree, I think, you know, protests and demonstrations and all that kind of stuff, you know, have their place. You know, my big thing is just that, you know, let's just make sure that the energy and everything is, you know, guided properly, and that we actually are growing, you know, and becoming better people based off of this, and, you know, not just reacting. Because I think right now, I mean, we're definitely in a time in this society where people are just reacting so much to the point where you actually feeding the enemy. You actually giving them energy, and people have to learn, you know, to redirect that energy into something that's going to be more beneficial and productive for them, you know, with their own growth and their own understanding. Like I said, it's those levels of consciousness where, you know, I don't think it's, you know, in most people's minds right now, it's like they know it's something more going on than what it is. But until they really start studying, they really won't understand, you know, exactly what it is or what the overall real big picture to all of this is. But I think that, like I said, that energy and that fire, man, here is just, you know, it's infectious. But it's funny that people keep talking about this. I was just talking to this guy the other day about this, you know, about, you know, Ferguson and how Ferguson keeps coming up in this, you know, national conversation. It's like, man, have you ever been to Ferguson? I mean, literally, you can eat off the street in Ferguson. It's quiet, and, you know, I mean, everybody got their neighborhoods, but, you know, it's just kind of crazy to me that it's like this whole little stigma, you know, it's hitting this area where there's some other, you know, topics for conversation about this particular area that could come up that I think are just as important that, you know, people really don't talk about.
You know, I went to WashU in St. Louis for about 4 years. I never heard of Ferguson while I was there. It was back in 98, 2002. And when I went there during the protest, like you said, it's not like a hood. It's like, it's suburban looking. And you go down the street where Mike Brown was assassinated or killed. It's a very small street. I'm actually surprised at the places that turns the history in this country as it relates to race relations. Like, you look at, like, Mike Brown, where he was at when he got shot. That's a very small street. If you go down to the Delta of Mississippi, where Emmett Till, that store where he whistled at the white lady, if you go faster than 40 miles per hour, you will miss that store. It still stands there, but it's very quiet. It's not really nothing like, you know, wow, just catch your attention. So I'm saying, like, a lot of this stuff that happened, even Walter Scott, who got shot in North Charleston on April 4th, 2015. I went to the spot where the cop killed him. It's right behind the outlet center. It's not that big. It's like an alley. It's like, it's weird how all this stuff really changes the narrative. But with St. Louis is interesting because, you know, we talk about black folktales. A lot of the black folktales that this country celebrate or we know of, they are based on real life events that happened in the St. Louis region. Like, Frankie shot Johnny in St. Louis for real back in 1899. You know, Johnny is buried in St. Louis. Stagger Lee is a real person who used to live in St. Louis. He's buried in the St. Louis area. You think about Dred Scott. He's buried right outside of Ferguson. You know, and that, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just crazy about that part of the country. It is different from a lot of places I've ever been to. But it is appealing, but it's interesting how everything is set up in that region.
You know what's interesting, too, is like, so like in this one area here in St. Louis called University City, which is right next to WashU, they have a Walk of Fame. And it's like, when you start going down that Walk of Fame and really looking at some of the stars on the street, you're like, damn, I didn't realize that dude was from St. Louis.
Exactly.
Like, you don't realize that, like, Vincent Price, like anybody that was into like 60s and 70s horror.
That's right.
You know, I always thought the guy was British. The guy was from St. Louis. You know what I'm saying? Just like little things like that. You know, Barbara Dick, I think he's like definitely the embodiment of like old school St. Louis, Sumner High School, John Goodman. I mean, it's just like, Ike and Tina Turner was from this area. I mean, it's almost kind of like you said, push you in the mind, like even like a Memphis, how we were talking about this the other day, where you don't even really realize, what kind of talent was coming out of here. But I think with St. Louis, though, what you really got to keep in mind is, I think Dred Scott is a perfect example. The St. Louis was that place, like during slavery and the Underground Railroad, where people would make the crossing on that river. Right. They would cross the river to freedom. And, and it's just real, I think about this all the time, and I'm like, man, I definitely, I want to incorporate St. Louis, in my books, because I think it's a good town. It can definitely use the notoriety. But like that arch, and like when you coming across that river and you see that arch, man, and you just be thinking to yourself, like, man, especially like I said, when you start really getting into symbols, symbology, structures, shapes of things, shapes of buildings, it's like nothing's done by coincidence. Right. Every building that you see, every skyscraper that you see, every monument that you see was built the way that it was built for a particular reason. If you understand way lines, grid lines, like I said, occultism and stuff. I mean, it's like this one part that's in St. Louis, and I still haven't been back over there yet. But we were riding by there, me and my family, and I think it's right on Grand. And there was like a sign up. It's like a monument there, right? And it's a sign that said something like, no rituals to be performed at this park after the sun goes down. And we both saw that and we said, what? Like, what did we just need? And like I said, but when you got that spirit where it's, I mean, you got to think about this. If you're a runaway slave and you're on your way to freedom, you always know that, like that. It's almost like part of being successful in life, right? When you have that last step to make, that's the hardest damn step.
Right.
That's the hardest step. And I think St. Louis, to me, is that step. It's like that hard step that you got to make, to be successful and to make it. And like I said, and that's just kind of that show me mentality. So, I mean, it's my adopted home, man. I mean, it's just real weird. Like, to me, I always say, like, Missouri is like, like I said, we call it misery. But it's also, to me, it's like the island of the misfit toy, or like that place where you don't even know why you go back. But it's so weird. Like, so many people leave here, go all over the world, all over the country, and they always come back. But I think another big thing is like, when you look at cities like Chicago, New York, L.A. and stuff like that, you almost, those places are like so conscious that you almost expect like something major, like what happened to Mike Brown, to happen somewhere like that, because it's already. But I think these smaller places where this kind of stuff is happening, it's making such a great impact, because in a lot of those places, that sleeping giant is already woke. It's like the kind of like when you look at consciousness, you start thinking about New York. I mean, man, they got like conscious factions. They got different brands of conscious. I mean, like it's just, one out of every 3 people. But down here, you more or less so in the Bible Belt. Like, you start talking to people about Afrocentrism and revolution and making changes and ancient Egypt, and just like, we were gods on earth at one time. They look at you like, man, this dude is nuts.
Blasphemy.
I mean, right. Seriously. They look at you like, man, I even have people sometimes they'll say, man, can I ask you a question? You're like, what? They're like, you from Chicago? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, I knew it. And I was like, what? Why do you say that? And they're like, man, y'all always talking that shit. And I'm like, well, hey, hopefully I'm offending you, because, we got to do something sometimes to cause some chaos, get you thinking, make your head hurt a little bit to, kind of get, like I said, get that spark going, man, wake up the zombies. Because, like I said, I look at some of these zombie TV shows and movies, and I'm like, man, they talking about us, man. Yeah. Because, a lot of us are just sleep, and I don't know if it's going to happen in this life or not. They might have to come back a couple of more times, because You know, there's a lot of souls out here that need to be woke.
Yeah, I also want to ask you, I mean, I think the story you tell in WEREnigro, it translates well into other type of media. And I know a lot of people are functional illiterate, and some people choose to be illiterate. They don't want to read at all. But we are a very visual culture. So do you have any plans in the future to make this more accessible to those type of people? This fantastic story.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm actually, you know, in discussions with some, like I said, I did another video on a different channel. And I mentioned at that time, I was like, you know, if you're a talented artist, you know, you're interested in possibly doing a comic book or something like that, to please, you know, let me know. And I actually had like two brothers reach out to me. One of the cats' name is Bashir, who designs, Bashir, he goes by Seraphim Soul, designs T-shirts, a phenomenal artist, you know, working on some comic books and books. He reached out to me. And this other brother by the name of Danny Kapler, my man, he actually was like, hey, man, I'm a talented artist. I read your book. He's like, man, I'm inspired. He was like, man, me and you, we can do big things. I said, all right, man, so send me some of your art and some of your concepts. And, man, I mean, he blew me away. I mean, absolutely blew me away. And like I said, really inspired me. So if you actually go on my website, which is AronRamses.com, the cover art that's on the website now is some artwork that he did. So, you know, like he'll send me some, you know, pictures of some of his concept art and everything. So it's absolutely incredible. So I would say going into 2018, like to me, the winter time is really like my deep thinking time where, you know, I'm going to start hashing out how to translate the book into a comic book series. So that's my goal for this winter, man, is, you know, I'm going to start drafting out this comic book. He's going to start putting some art to it. And I think it's going to be absolutely, you know, beautiful. It's going to keep the essence of the comic book. It's going to keep the essence of the novel while actually, you know, putting some art in there that's really going to help people like bring the story together. I'm also, you know, plan on doing an audio book because, you know, some people when they're riding in their car, they would like to listen to it. And, you know, I've been told that by a lot of people. It's like, man, you know, so I, you know, actually have the equipment and everything. So I plan on doing something with the audio book. I'm not sure when that would be out. I would say probably more so like in the spring and summer. But, you know, hey, you know, after that, man, the sky's the limit. I mean, you know, when I think about just this whole trilogy that I'm trying to put together in my mind, man, I'm telling you, I honestly think it could be bigger than Star Wars. And I mean, I know that's, you know, that's saying a lot, but with my imagination where I plan on going with all of this, oh man, I mean, this could just be, you know, something for all time that I honestly think would just make such a huge, you know, impact and impression on us as a people, not only here in this country, but just globally, you know, and put us in a completely different light. I just think that's how big and powerful this is. Because not, you know, to this point, to me, we really just haven't seen anything for us that is really out there that's just that, you know, conscious and woke to the point where we control it, you know. And that's why it was important for me to self-publish, you know, to edit it myself. You know, I did everything, designed the cover, put it out. And even with my partner, you know, when it comes to this comic book, he's on the same page too, because he has some fantastic stories to tell that are absolutely phenomenal that we're going to start working on together too, to, you know, really make something special, man. I mean, like I said, but I think the main thing that I think we don't have that we need is just to be able to control this, you know, ourselves and put it out ourselves. You know, I mean, people, I think, in the industry and everything, you know, get so caught up in, you know, sales and box office and whatever. But then I also look back on what Master P was doing, like when he came out with I'm About It. You know, how like that was literally something that was shot on a couple of cameras. He probably financed it himself with a credit card, was selling it out of his trunk, and just, you know, built this empire. So that's very inspiring, and he controlled it, you know. Right. So I'm just saying, I mean, that's what we need, because to me, regardless of what you think is going on, unless you are paying for that film and you're paying for that production, you don't have control.
Mm.
I don't care what anybody says about that. You know, even like, you know, I've heard things about the Black Panther movie that's coming out with Marvel. Hey, you know, I'll tell anybody right now, I can almost guarantee you, because black people are going to get behind that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And anytime we get behind something and we buy into it, it becomes big.
Right.
So that's probably going to be the biggest Marvel movie from a dollar standpoint that's ever come out. But you know, the thing on that too is they're saying, well, you know, the director, you know, has complete control. He's gonna write a movie for us. He's gonna do this. He's gonna do that. And I'm like, yeah, but on the same token, who released that information?
Mm.
How did that information get out? Where'd you hear that at all? On Entertainment Tonight? Yeah, he showed them what to do, and they giving him $250 million to make a movie. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's like, you know, I definitely believe it's going to be a good thing or whatever. But, you know, I also look at it, too, at the end of the day, who's that money going home to?
Exactly. Oh, Walt Disney started Disney Company. He's from Missouri.
Right.
It's going home to Disney.
Like, Disney World was actually, yeah, people don't know this story, but like a partner of mine who's kind of tapped in here, you know, told me, he says, you know, Disneyland or Disney World was actually supposed to be in St. Louis.
Oh, wow.
But the reason why it ended up in Florida is because when the powers that be here in St. Louis were mapping out what they were going to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Bush Anheuser-Busch people was like, hey, I think that's a great idea. I can't wait to sell beer there. Because I believe where Busch Gardens is where Disney World was supposed to be.
Wow.
Right?
Uh-huh.
And so Disney didn't want alcohol sold at his place.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when he pulled out, and then it ended up in Florida.
That did something. Wow, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, so from there, that's where the whole Grants Farm, you know, amusement park and everything, that's why that ended up popping up. But that same power that be, the powers that be in St. Louis are the ones that kind of, in their own way, keep St. Louis City under control and oppressed.
Right.
And saying a lot of people don't know about that. A lot of people don't know that St. Louis, like most cities that you go to, they're incorporated in a county, right? Well, St. Louis City and St. Louis County don't have nothing to do with each other. See, people don't know that.
Right. It's an independent
because
city.
during the Civil War, St. Louis City defected from the county because the county was supposed to be Confederate sympathizers, right? And so that's why, like, even here now in St. Louis, that's why they lost the Rams. They'll probably keep the Cardinals, but they don't do nothing downtown. They don't invest in downtown, you know, because they want everything out in the county, you know. So like I said, we still got a lot going on here, man. You know, I mean, like I said, after a while, you start seeing that everything is the way that it is for a reason. You know, there are no, they can try to blame it on crime and all that other kind of stuff, but, you know, all that's created.
That's true. I hear what you're saying. That's like a lot of cities. I mean, gentrification thing and all this stuff that's going on with all the cities around the country is not a coincidence. Like you said, there's no such thing as coincidence when it comes to building and planning certain things. So also you're a guitarist, right? You're a musician.
Yes, I am, man. I consider myself a pupil of Jimi Hendrix, Carlos Santana, and Prince, man. You know, I mean, I've been playing the guitar, man, almost over 25 years. So outside of writing, I also, you know, create music, just, you know, instrumental music primarily based around the guitar. You know, lots of different genres, blues, jazz, rock, just whatever I'm in the mood to do, man. So one of these times you come to St. Louis, you got to come on over and bring your trumpet.
That sounds cool. I also want to ask you that. So I'm thinking about this could be a great live action movie. Will you do the soundtrack for the WEREnigro movie?
Oh, I would love to. I mean, I would definitely want to bring in some talent. But it's funny, man. Like I you know, outside of the WEREnigro and that trilogy, I actually have some really fantastic ideas, you know, in my mind. Like I had this one thought, you know, in my mind about a movie where it's like it's called the United the United Kingdoms of Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of like the United States of America being the most powerful country in the world, Africa is the most powerful, continent in the world where it's unified. Of course, it's like this royal family. But when I think about that, man, I just think about this big production with just incredible, just like beautiful music and just national anthems and everything.
Wow.
And, it's like, I wrap my head around that kind of stuff. But I'm sure you understand this, man. It's just, sometimes it really just comes down to, it's just not enough time in the day,
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, so, if my book sales, really took off the way that I would hope they will, and I know one day they will, then I can really just dedicate my time, to my art, man, and just really focus on, writing, getting these comic books out, doing a lot of different book series about a lot of different things, building on what, I'm trying to start, and also like putting together the music and everything. So, it's just like I said, man, it's just not enough time in the day sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, but you got the metaphysical roots too. You got the metaphysical roots that you could tap into anytime, because you manifest this master work, and I know the best is yet to come. And I also want to ask you before we go, like, I was thinking about when I read Aware Negro, if you did do a live action movie, who would play the Aware Negro and also the white lead? Because I was thinking about when you were describing the Aware Negro, I was actually thinking about Steven Jackson, the former running back for the St. Louis Rams. Can you talk about the dreads and stuff like that? And he was a football player physique. But who you have anybody in mind for those roles?
Oh yeah, it's funny, man. I had all the roles kind of mapped out. So do you know who? I tell you who my inspiration for the WEREnigro was. The Javion Clowney.
Oh yeah, the dude that was number one from South Carolina, for the Houston Texans. He's a freak of nature.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. So when I saw, so it's so funny. So like when I sent artwork, like I'll send photos to the artist and say, hey, this is who I'm kind of thinking about. So it's like that would be my guy. It's funny. Like, you ever watched that TV show Shameless?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think his name is oh man, what is that guy's name? The guy Frank Gallagher, who plays like the dad who's drunk.
Yeah, I know you're talking about.
You know who I'm talking. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but to me, like a young version of him,
I can see
Spencer.
That. Yeah.
Like Mia to me.
Are you talking about Macy? That's his name, William Macy or something like that.
Yeah, William H. Macy. Yeah, a young William H. Macy. Yeah. Like Tony Montanisi to me is like the situation from Jersey. What is that? Jersey Shore.
Oh yeah. I can see that.
Yeah. Like to me, Mia, man. Oh man, I was thinking about a lot of different. I mean, I know my wife is like, "What'd you just say?" But I'm like, man, I was thinking about a lot of women when I was writing that character.
It was a good visual, man.
Yeah, she's almost like a mix between Naturi Noten and Regina Wesley.
Ah, that's a nice little. Yeah, that's nice.
Show True Blood.
Yeah, I know who Regina is. Like, I know. Yeah.
Like, so I would say, like, what's his name? Oh man, what is that one brother's name? Remy something. He was in those movies with Kevin Hart and that one brother with the light eyes.
Oh, you talking about
Michael Ealy?
Michael Ealy, okay.
Not Michael Ealy, but the one brother that the bald-headed cat.
Oh, Romano, something like that. Yeah, Mark. I know you're talking about. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah. See, to me, that's what's his name? Dion.
I can see that being Dion. He'll be a good Dion. Yeah, he would definitely. Yeah. Romani Malco or something like that. Something like that.
Yeah, and then the character Brad Thompson. That's I would say like a Matthew McConaughey or something like that.
That's cool. I can see that. I can see that when you cut it.
Yeah, so
that's cool, man.
Well, and this is what I tell people about my writing process.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm writing, and it's like to me like the what's his name? What was the name of the character? The WEREnigro who transformed him is the Black Bull.
Yeah.
To me, that's like a Kimbo Slice, but of course, like a bigger version of Kimbo Slice, 7 feet tall.
Right.
But I got it all left out, man. It's like whenever I write, like, so for me in my writing process, like when I say I'm writing in the spirit, it's like when I sit down to write, to me, it's almost like I'm watching a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I'm watching a movie, I'm just writing down everything that I see. But that's how it's flowing. To me, like the Macumbeira, I don't know if you familiar with Brazilian music or not, but it's this one character named, this one musician by the name of Sir George.
Okay.
And he was in a movie called, you ever see that Pele movie?
Mm.
Okay, he played Pele's father.
Okay.
And, and I'm a big fan of his music and everything. To me, and it's just like, man, he would be perfect. Perfect for that role, man. So like I said, no, when I imagine all this, man, I have it all mapped out. To me, it's like a movie playing in my head with all these characters, and stuff like that. So I think that kind of helps me also when I'm describing the character, because I can kind of see them, in my mind and everything. But, all the characters too are, either somebody that, I've run into at some point in my life, or somebody who, like every once in a while, like you just run into somebody that's just different. And then you just like, man, you can't get them out of your head. And it's like, man, I got to incorporate this person into the story somehow. But now every time I imagine something, man, every time I imagine a book or whatever, I'm always putting people, in minds that, hey, man, I would love to make some movies. So, if somebody's listening to this video, man, they want to holler at me, holler at me.
We're definitely getting the contact information. We're talking about movies in Hollywood, and we know what's going on right now in the news cycle. It's like everything is happening all at once, like a scene from Godfather, where everybody getting killed at the same time. Like with the sexual harassment thing, it's crazy because some of the most powerful people in Hollywood and other high places are being brought down low by things that may have happened decades ago in terms of sexual harassment, and whatnot, and sexual misconduct. And I just want to get your thought. What's your take on this? What's going on right now?
Well, this is how I look at it. First of all, we have to understand the age that we're in right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? We're in the age of Aquarius. So this is how I look at this. And you think about, okay, so what is the Aquarian, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Aquarian is basically, like, I'm not going to go into the real gist of the mentality, but the Aquarian is actually a sexually abused character that's carrying around a big vase of water, in which this water can be translated into many things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you think about water, to me, you got to think about two things about water, and the makeup of it is that it's clear, it's transparent, and it's being poured out of the vase. Mm-hmm. So really right now, and this kind of goes into occultism and how people really have no idea, understanding how prevalent the occult is in our society. Mm-hmm. They have no idea, they have no understanding that this is all ritual. I mean, when you watch the Grammys, American Music Awards, the Super Bowl, any big production, it's all part of a ritual. People don't understand that as they watch the news, what's on, what's not, how they feeding off you, how they feeding off of your reactions. This reality TV show that's in the White House right now.
Right.
So the thing is, with transparency and the pouring out of the water, is that all the secrets now are pouring out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got all the secrets are pouring out. Everything is transparent. Everything now is out in the open. And what people also don't understand, and this is what I try to tell, especially I try to explain this to Black people a lot.
Mm-hmm.
My aunt told me this once, and it just rang so true. As much as you think that there are people out here that are against you, you have to also understand how they are against each other. Okay? So you have war. To me, what I'm seeing right now, to me, in my opinion, are two warring factions. And people might try to break it down as simple as they can and say, well, this is the liberals, versus the conservatives and stuff like that. No, because they all are on the same team. So this has nothing to do with anything that's political. Like I said, I think a lot of it is ritual. And you also think about this. You think about the people that this is affecting, right?
Mm-hmm. This
is affecting the old guard, not the new guard, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these people that this stuff is affecting, they're living theirs. They don't have to work again.
Mm.
I mean, they're not going to go broke,
Mm-hmm.
off of any of this. I mean, you really haven't heard anything about any criminal charges.
Right.
You haven't really heard anything. So you almost got to just start wondering to yourself, like, what's the overall, end game with this?
Mm-hmm.
What is this going to prove? I mean, that's yet to be seen. But I think when you start gearing your mind around this, then you kind of, like I said, and you kind of understand where these people get their thoughts from, what kind of books they read, the kind of stuff that they study. And like I said, and when you start tapping into the occult and reading, occult books and stuff like that, you start seeing, it starts making a lot more sense when you can kind of start understanding what's motivating people out here. And so, once again, like I said, a lot of people believe that, everybody, like 98% of everybody in this country is motivated by Christianity. And it's just like, no, it ain't that at all.
Mm.
But like I said, when you start really doing some studies, you really start embracing this consciousness, it all kind of starts making sense. And you just like, damn, these jokers out here are crazy as hell, man.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all that is. I mean, that's all this really is. It's just like, I think that the overall, like, just this psychosis in this country that is so prevalent, yet deemed so normal. I mean, a lot of stuff that should be taboo is now normal. So, crazy people don't even get treatment anymore. And, so when you start seeing it spilling over, I mean, seriously, you start seeing it spilling over out here, it all kind of starts making sense. So like I said, so if you go into the fact that we're in the age of Aquarius and everything that's coming out now, that's all part of this big ritual. It's all part of what they believe in.
I mean, that makes a lot. I mean, what you're saying is very interesting because I also thinking that Hugh Hefner left at the right time, and I wonder what Bill Cosby thinking every day now because all this stuff has been coming out.
He's like, hey, they ain't talking about my ass no more. So think about it like this. A lot of the times, the catalyst for a lot of stuff is a brother, right?
Yeah, that's true.
We pop it off, we get it started, and then it just starts rolling. I mean, so, you kind of start seeing, I think what you also start seeing when you bring him into this, and like I said, you have nothing out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure some people probably start talking about him anyway, even though he's dead.
Right.
But this is just a culture.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start understanding this overall culture that has been prevalent, in that particular industry, that's why I say you got to be real careful sometimes when you start thinking about who you want to lay down with or who you really want to get in, who you want to get into business with.
Right.
And these people that you want to deal with, because, you hear a lot of talk about, Illuminati this, Illuminati that, and whatever. I'm sure to a degree, some of that plays into this, but some of that also plays into ego.
Mm-hmm.
And people wanting to feel powerful. It's like, you go 1 minute, you're a kid, on the corner, trying to make a living for yourself, or, you like trying to get into your art, you get a record deal, you start getting a little bit of success, and 2 years later, you running your business like you in the mob or something,
right? Like
you a gangster,
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, so you start thinking about these other industries, and that's just what a lot of this is. I mean, when people, it's amazing sometimes how people are so hungry for power. I'll give you a quick example of what I mean by that.
Mm-hmm.
So the other day, I go in the Subway to order a sandwich, right?
Right.
And I'm on the phone talking to my brother. Like, a lot of the times you can go into a place and, you having two conversations at one time.
Right.
So I'm sitting there and I'm like, damn, I've literally been sitting here for 10 minutes and they haven't asked me yet if I want help. So the lady looks up and she says, are you done talking on the phone? Are you taking an order or something? I'm like, no. She said, well, yeah, it's our policy that unless you get off the phone, we won't take your order. And I was like, really? I said, when did that start? And she was like, oh, it's been like that. And I said, is there something on the door that says that? And she was like, yep, it's right there. I said, okay. So I got off the phone. I said, all right, man, I'll call you back. So I ordered my sandwich and everything. She was pleasant and everything. Here's this person. She ain't necessarily look like she was the brightest person. I don't know if she ever finished school or not.
Mm-hmm.
She probably don't make more than $8 an hour or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
I walk outside and I look for that sign on the door. There wasn't no sign on the door.
Mm.
Her whole thing was is that for her and her station in life, she wants to feel powerful.
Yeah.
That's how people's egos work. I mean, you look at a lot of, I mean, I ain't trying to knock nobody, but you look at a lot of police officers out here. They don't make shit for a living.
Mm-hmm.
But they'll even tell you, I don't make nothing for a living. I don't make a lot of money, but I got power.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I am the law. They'll tell you that. You know them, they'll tell you that shit.
Right.
You know, so like I said, so you look at a lot of the stuff that's going on right now. A lot of this is power plays. A lot of, you know, the old guard is kind of handing things over. All these people, man, are into crazy shit, dude. I mean, I'll tell anybody. I know you said a little while ago you were out there in L.A.
Mm-hmm.
Keep me out of L.A. That's when I literally never. I don't have, you know. I really don't ever have to go back out there, man.
Right.
I spent a lot of time out there. Nah, man. That's I keep it simple, man.
Well, you know, people sell their souls for
What's that?
I said people sell their souls for so cheap. You know what I'm saying? They just sell their souls.
Right.
You know, it's unfortunate.
Nah. Hey, give me a comfortable living. My dream one day is to have me a farm somewhere, man, where it's quiet. I can walk outside. I don't have to see nobody. I can concentrate. I can get some stuff done, and that's all I can ask for, man. I don't need all the glitz and glamour, man. Don't need the fame. Don't need none of that.
Oh, Brother Ramsey, we want you to get as many fans as possible for your wonderful work. How can people contact you or connect with you and buy the book?
Well, okay. So I definitely have a website. My website is AronRamses.com. So that's AronRamses.com. I'm also on Instagram, and that is I am Aron Ramses. I'm also on Facebook. Just look me up, Aron Ramses, the author. I'm on Facebook. And, you know, you can also email me on my website. I always respond to people, you know, depending on what you want to talk about. Leave your number. I'll give you a buzz. We can rap. So my email address is Aron, ARON, at AronRamses.com.
Thank you so much, brother, for that. And do you have any closing thoughts or words you want to share with us?
You know, I was thinking about this a little bit. And then just, you know, in my studies, you know, I ran across a Bible verse the other day that just said that, you know, if Jesus ever returned, or if the Christ ever returned, we will reject him. You know, we will not see him. We would not acknowledge him. And I was really thinking about that. And I was like, you know what? I said, when I look in the mirror every day, what do I see? And that's what I see. I see that energy. I see, and I'm not saying that I see it just in me. I see that in all of us, because to me, that's who we are. You know, that's who we are, and that's why we are in the position that we're in. That's why we were brought over here. Like I said, you do your studies, it'll all start making a sense. But that's the one thing I would say to people. Look in that mirror, man, and think to yourself, do you love yourself? Do you reject yourself? Do you reject who you are? You know, are you proud of what you accomplished? Because you should, because everybody is significant. You know, nobody is insignificant, and everybody, and we're all like, you know, guys just having a human experience, man. So I think if you can embrace that and just live with it, and, you know, a couple other things that Baba Dick used to say that really hit me is like fear and God don't occupy the same space. I mean, that's one of my mottos and one of my mantras, man.
That's true.
You know, and it's just like you just have to put yourself out there, believe that what you are doing is right, believe that what you are doing is for the betterment and the improvement of your people, you know, in our situation. And, you know, sometimes in life there's just things out there that's just worth, you know, fighting for. And you know, and if you got to give it all up for that, then that's what you got to do, you know. So that's all I got to say in closing, my man. Once again, Brother Ron, thank you so much for, you know, having me on, staying on me, man. And because, you know, I can't procrastinate, you know, a little bit, but, you know, I really enjoy myself, and hopefully you'll have me back on one day.
I'll definitely have you back on one day. I want to keep you encouraged and keep on producing the wonderful works you are doing, because you're doing God work. You're doing work that you were put here to do, and you're doing it for the betterment and the empowerment of our people. So I look forward to the next chapter or the next novel in the trilogy. But also, in the words of the great Duke Ellington, we love you madly, brother. Keep on producing and pushing.
All right, I appreciate it, my man. You take care.
You too. Thank you.